All right, I am back to do another video in our DBS core components videos. And I'm going to be doing one that we call biblical action principles. We have changed from just calling it biblical principles because this is one of the pieces of the homework that we have consistently seen students and staff struggle with understanding. So we have recently decided to add the word action into this. And this is part of the core components for the DBS because this is a tool that we want students to be able to walk away from the DBS learning. And the tool is we want them to know how to read the Bible and be able to identify life lessons. We want them to learn how to read the text and be able to pull applicable things and be able to apply them to their lives. And the main thing that differentiates it from things like timeless truths or just applications is that it combines both. It is a timeless truth coupled with the application, and the thing that sets it apart is it has that action statement in it. We want this to be worded in such a way that if you were to find somebody on the street, in the store, anywhere, and you were to share your biblical action principle with them, then they would know what to do with their life. They would know how to apply that thing right away. It's not something like you walk up to someone and say, God forgives sins. Great. That's something about God that is really important to know. But just from that statement, I don't know what to do with my life. But if you come up to somebody and you say, because God forgives sins, then confess those to Him and live a pure life. That way, you say that to somebody and they know that God forgives, and now I know what I need to do with the thing that we've learned. So, we want the students to be able to identify these things in the text. And this is something that takes a little bit of time to develop the skill of doing. Because what you're doing is you're basically doing the inductive method in one shot. You are observing a scripture or observing a passage in scripture, and you are doing the interpreting right there for what it would have meant and what lesson could be pulled from that. And then the application is you writing out that biblical action principle. And we want the students to be able to do this every week, and we want them to do 10 biblical action principles every week because we want them to be so immersed in the text and so used to pulling these principles from the different books that they are reading week in and week out. And by the end of the school, they have 120 or so biblical action principles that they themselves discovered throughout the Bible. And here are a few things that we want these to be. We want them to be, in general, positive statements. We don't want them to start off with, don't do this. If it's something that is don't do, then what are they going to do? We want it to be a short statement that applies for all Christians all over the world at any point in time. And we want it to be a general desire of the heart, not necessarily a statement with an assumed specific outcome. And we don't want them necessarily to be personally aimed because we want these biblical principles to be something where you go to somebody on the road and you say it and it can apply to anybody. Um, that is the overall heart of what we want out of this part of DBS. We want the students to be able to develop this skill and be able to do this with any piece of the text throughout the school. That's why we want this to be a core component of a DBS. And later on in this conference, we will be going into greater detail as far as the instructions, but I do have one example here that I want to share with you that is actually from the manual. And the scripture is Matthew 22, verse 37. It says, Jesus replied, you must love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, and all your mind. And from that, we have a biblical action principle that says, be completely wholehearted in your devotion to Jesus. When you hear that, or if you were to tell somebody that, then they would know, with my life, I need to be completely, wholeheartedly devoted to Jesus. That is the general idea of what we want with these biblical action principles.